Hey, what's going on, everybody? So today we're going to go over a ranged Tal Rasha wizard build in patch 2.2. Now keep in mind there are various ways to build Tal Rashas. This just happens to be one of the viable specs. So first things first, let's go over the new revamped set bonuses. The 2 set reads, damaging enemies with arcane, cold, fire, or lightning will cause a meteor of the same damage type to fall from the sky. There's an 8-second cooldown for each damage type. So it's obvious right off the bat that we want to be rotating through our elements. The 4 set, attacks increase your resistance to that damage type by 100% for 6 seconds. So for example, if you attack with cold damage, your resistance to cold will be increased by 100%, so on and so forth. The 6 set bonus, attacks increase your damage by 150% for 6 seconds. Arcane, cold, fire, and lightning attacks each add 1 stack. Adding a stack refreshes the duration. So this stacks up to 4 times. Now keep in mind that you stack it up to 4 and then it will fall off, then you stack it back up to 4. You cannot continuously keep 4 stacks. It doesn't work that way. Let's get right into the build. First up we have Shock Pulse Piercing Orb. Release a single giant orb that oscillates forward, dealing 214% weapon damage as lightning to everything it hits. This is obviously going to proc our lightning for our Tal Rasha set, and it's also going to proc half of our focus and restraint combo, which we'll get into when we get into the gear here in just a minute. Next up we have Blizzard Frozen Solid. Enemies caught in the blizzard have a 100% chance to be frozen for 2.5 seconds. Really good crowd control, especially against elites and champions. You're going to be kiting a lot in this build, and this is going to help you quite a bit to stay alive. Energy Armor Force Armor. Incoming attacks that would deal more than 35% of your maximum life are reduced to deal 35% of your maximum life instead. The amount absorbed cannot exceed 100% of your maximum life. This is really just going to stop us from getting chunked. Especially against things like, Arcane Beams and Jailer and Thunderstorm and things like that. For the most part, you're really trying to just not get hit whatsoever, just kiting around constantly. But, at times, you are going to get hit by certain things. Some things are just unavoidable, and this helps with that quite a bit. Magic Weapon, Force Weapon, 20% increased damage, pretty self-explanatory there. Next up we have Energy Twister Wicked Wind. Now this is the Energy Twister that spins in place, and with the Energy Twister bracers that periodically pull enemies into the twister, it's very synergistic with meteors in general, because meteors hit for a lot of damage but in a relatively small radius, so pulling everything together is extremely good in the build. This is also going to proc our arcane damage for Tal Rashas. Hydra Mammoth Hydra is going to proc our fire damage. It's also going to be dealing the most damage out of our abilities. We're going to be running Tasker and Theos and a Serpent Sparker. So we're going to have out 2 Mammoth Hydras at any given time. We're going to run Elemental Exposure. Damaging enemies with Arcane, Cold, Fire, or Lightning will cause them to take 5% more damage from all sources for 5 seconds. Each different damage type applies a stack, stacking up to 4 times. Sort of like a miniature Tal Rasha's 6-piece set bonus, really. Astral Presence for more Arcane Power and Arcane Power Regeneration. Next up we have Unstable Anomaly. Basically our get out of jail free card. It's going to be a second life passive for us. And, the way that you're trying to play, you're trying to kite and crowd control enemies and just never get hit. But certain things are going to hit you. You're going to get hit by Jailer and Thunderstorm, some unavoidable damage. And also, there's a good chance from time to time you're going to mess up and get hit by certain things that maybe you shouldn't. So this will kind of get you, help you out a little bit there in those situations. We're also running Glass Cannon. Increase all damage done by 15%, but decrease armor resistances by 10%. Which kind of ties in with Unstable Anomaly and the way that you're trying to play the build in general. Again, you're trying to not get hit, so this does synergize with the way you're trying to play and set up your build. Alright, that brings us right into the gear. So as far as Tal Rasha's pieces go, we have the Tal Rasha's helmet with meteor damage, crit chance, and a socket that's ancient. The amulet with int, crit damage, crit chance, and a socket. Low crit damage there, unfortunately it's the best one that I have. The chest piece with int, vitality, and most importantly, you want to make sure you get Hydra damage there. The Tal Rasha's belt with int, vitality, all res, and life percentage, and armor roll over the all res would be ideal. And then we've got the pants with int, vitality, armor, and 2 sockets, and then the offhand, which the offhand always rolls with up to 25% meteor damage now. So it makes it pretty difficult to roll a bad one. You do want to make sure you get an ancient one, however, to get more average damage out of it. And we've got the Meteor Boots that were introduced in 2.2. Increase the damage of Meteor by 100%. When your Meteor hits 3 or less enemies, the damage is increased by 196%. This is kind of an unofficial piece of the Tal Rasha's set, and gives you a ton more damage to Meteor and even more damage to single targets like Rift Guardians. Running Focus and Restraint. You get 50% increased damage for 5 seconds when you hit with a resource generating attack, which is our Shock Pulse. We'll be proccing that first bonus, and the second bonus procs when you hit with a resource spending attack, which is going to be pretty much everything else that we're running. Gives us a ton of damage there. We got the Ranslor's Folly Bracers. Energy Twister periodically pulls in enemies within 30 yards, like we already talked about, pulling everything in for the meteors to get their maximum damage. We've got Deathwatch Mantle. Really, any shoulders would work just fine in this build. There's none that you specifically need to run. You just want to make sure they have Int Vitality and Hydra damage is important there. And then as far as the fourth stat, Armor roll or a life percentage roll would probably be better than the all res that I currently have. We've got Tasker and Theos that are trifecta and are going to give our Mammoth Hydras more attack speed. And then we have the Serpent Sparker like we already talked about, so we're getting 2 Mammoth Hydras out at a time. This is rolled with Vitality, which is nice since it's ancient and it gives us a lot of Vit, but you could also go with an attack speed roll there if you wanted to. It's kind of up to you what you want to do with that. As far as legendary gems go, we're running the Gem of Efficacious Toxin. We're going to be hitting pretty much all the enemies on the screen all the time, so we're going to have really high uptime on the dot effect from this, and also everything's going to take 10% increase to damage from all sources. We're going to run a Bane of the Trapped. We have a lot of crowd control in this build, and this should be procced the majority of the time. And then we have Zai's Stone of Vengeance. You're going to be dealing more damage the farther away you are from the enemies. So this goes with trying to kite in the build and really just trying to be at max range at all times. And as the secondary effect is also extremely important for this build. 20% chance on hit to stun the enemy for 1 second. We're hitting constantly with different things, so this is going to proc quite often. I'm going to leave you guys with the level 52 Greater Rift that I did earlier today. Hope you enjoy it. If you do, don't forget to like and subscribe as always, and I'll see you guys next time.